Hey everyone, don't want to keep you guys here for too long since you are here to see the interview and the future of Path content, and it is pretty exciting. This is my first time doing longer form video editing stuff like this, so if you like what you see, please consider subscribing if you want to see more Runeterra content from me, like top 10 lists or how to get better at ranked and tournaments and all that stuff. With all that out of the way, let's get straight to the interview. Okay, so start it all off. Hey everyone, I'm RealPrismsword. You, wait, sorry. It's me, RealPrismsword, and I was granted a cool opportunity to interview Riot and talk about Path to Champion's future. A lot of you already know Dan Felder, but for those within the community who aren't as familiar, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, Dan?
Sure. I'm Dan Felder. I'm one of the lead designers at Legends of Runeterra. I'm on the lead designer of the Path of Champions mode and features in general, as well as economy and pretty much everything that's not a card technically falls under my purview, though a lot of very smart people and designers do the actual work on a lot of that as well. So we're a very collaborative team here, but that's technically what I do.
Okay. So start off with some questions. What made the Path team decide to introduce a new currency in the form of Stardust instead of expanding on allowing what Wild Fragments could do right now, like buying relics or golden reliquaries, etc., etc.?
Got it. We're starting with the good questions. This is so fair warning. I'm about to geek out about economy design because Stardust was actually like always part of the plan. We just needed to make sure that enough stuff was in place to make it make sense right away. Because the thing is, like, fundamentally, why does any game have more than one currency? Is like the root of this question. And the answer is because when one currency is used for everything, it's really hard to balance and tune things around different parts of the player journey and experience. Wild Fragments exist actually to solve a very specific problem. Basically, before we had Wild Fragments, players wanted to work towards making a little bit of progress to unlocking their next champion that they wanted to unlock or starring up a next champion every day. And so that was what we were really aiming for. Like, hey, okay, we've got random fragments that create variety, and we give out a lot of them. But what we really want as well is players to say every day, I know that my session is making a little bit of progress towards the next champion I want to focus on. So at first we were doing stuff um, like wish listing we were thinking about doing, like, oh well, what if you can just list a few champions and really increase the rate that those champions will get unlocked whenever you're opening like fragments, like more of them go there, but then the player has to decide that ahead of time. And that, like, if you don't know about that, you feel really bad that you missed out, so we wanted to let people not have to make that decision right away. We looked at other systems, but ultimately Wild Fragments just seemed like the simplest version. Like, you get a small number of fragments tied to your daily quest. That's why it's tied to the daily quest, so that every day you're making meaningful progress. That's not at all what Stardust is trying to do. Stardust is trying to be a late game resource that veteran players with bigger collections can collect for long-term goals, or use to fill out the gaps in their relic collection. Like, early on, you get a lot of random stuff, and then we want to let you target like the missing gaps in your relic collection, so we needed something like the Emporium before we could do that. And if there's not any sort of like common or rare relic you want, you can save up and know that eventually you'll get to buy a really cool epic relic. So Stardust is also supposed to reward players for maxing out lots of different champions by giving them a special resource. Previously, obviously, when you had duplicate relics or duplicate champions with excess fragments, they would get converted to wild fragments, which technically is extremely valuable. Like, one fragment for any champion you want of the base champions is really valuable, more valuable than random from the like more random fragments for most people. But many people didn't like when they were getting excess wild fragments at the rate that made sense for the economy, because they get so many comparatively in just their day to day. Like, you work all this time to unlock a cool gold or platinum vault, or even just silver, and instead of getting a lot of fragments for somebody new, you get like less fragments than you got from your daily quest.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, it just, people were giving advice like, don't max out lots of champions, it feels really bad, and that's all we want. So the goal was to say, hey, if I get random fragments, it's either to a champion I like, or if it's already something I've maxed out, I get something else I want for a different goal. And that way we can be like, overall, we can start increasing the number of rewards that we give to new players, because they've got a lot of champions to catch up with. without worrying we're going to overflood the economy because they're doing different things. Stardust gets to be something focused on if you already have a lot of maxed out champions. You can feel good about that and start earning that instead. So it's a long, complicated answer. We're talking about like weeks and weeks of, discussions and meetings. I could go on for the whole interview about this alone. But the main point is there are two resources aimed at doing different things. Wild Fragments are meant to be a little bit of progress towards a specific champion every day. That's why it has a cap. We want people to spend it, not hoard it. Stardust exists to be hoarded. Like, we want you to feel good saving up for something really cool in the future. And it's aimed at being a special thing for Elder players.
Okay, that's cool. Cause like as me as like a path player myself, like I've always had like the champions maxed out for a while, and like recently I had like the full like maxed out cap myself of like every champion's 3-star, every like Wild Fragments now 50 out of 50, and I can't spend any more. And then like now suddenly I'm like building up the Stardust currency, so now I can maybe do whatever I want in the Emporium.
Mm-hmm.
To move on to that, regarding the Emporium, Emporium and the new Stardust currency has been out for over a month now, as of this interview recording. Um, is the Path team satisfied with the status or with the Stardust acquisition rate and like trying to get like gold dweller reliquaries and whatnot?
No, no, not at all. Like, it's too slow. And it's intended to be too slow at first because the whole point is that we wanted to let people understand the system before they were asked to make really important decisions around it. So we could have waited before introducing Stardust, and until we got the additional sources of rewards in. Like, the whole point about like rewards are too slow in Path of Champions, and they have been for too long. I have wanted to talk about Stardust for months because the whole point is that, like you've mentioned, players can get not just everything they need for the mode, they can get everything for the mode. Like, literally every single champion at max stars. So one of the things we wanted to do before we can increase rewards even more is to expand the long-term goals, to adding things like Epic Relics and future things as well. Frees up enough breathing room that we can just give out more stuff. So we had to free up the breathing room first because all of our energy was tied to releasing the Emporium. And now that we have, over the course of future patches, not all at once, but some, and some we'll be talking about today, we are going to be increasing the number of rewards players earn for free and the types of rewards players can buy, and just giving people a lot more, stuff around the board. Like, we need to increase the rate.
Okay. Good to know the ideation and intention behind all of that. Monthly challenges were the most recent gameplay mode that was introduced to Path of Champions. What metrics does the team use to gauge monthly challenges success, and does the team feel that monthly challenges have met those goals in mind?
Sure. So, well, the challenges are a little tricky because it was very experimental, but we always check to see how many players are playing the mode. Path of Champions players tend to be very reward focused, so the fact we saw a lot of players trying it, even without any rewards, was really encouraging. So it's already pretty successful by that metric, but also we wanted to see if it was succeeding at its main goal, which is to provide a challenge for players with large collections. Until the monthly challenge, players only needed one good champion of each region, like, that. If you cared about the monthly challenge, though, it was a good idea to have a lot of powerful champions, because the more you have, the more attempts you get to win the mode. Now, technically, you only need like 20 something if you do it perfectly, to max it out.
Right.
But having more is always nice because it just gives you more shots on goal. It gives you more flexibility in case there's really specific mutators. And so we wanted to let players play with their whole collection. Also, Path of Champions players tend to follow a pattern of playing one champion for a long time to level it up, to star it up, all those things. And then sort of once it's maxed out, or if they've beaten all their main goals with it, they put it on the shelf. And we kind of wanted to create an excuse for players to take a lot of those things off the shelf and play with them a little bit, then put them back on the shelf. So that way players could focus on the cool new champions, but still go back and lightly play with a lot of different champions. So we saw a lot of players, including yourself, like really engaging with that, especially around launch, even without rewards, and making it really clear that if you wanted to do well in the mode, you had to think strategically. It became like a resource puzzle, like a macro level strategy of which champion do you deploy when. Do you save Jinx for a really hard thing? Do you use her to knock out some challenges she's really good at? How do you spend your champions as resources? Even weaker ones or lower star ones can be very valuable because they free up the attempts for you don't have to use your strongest champions on the weaker things.
Right. Yeah, I remember that entire like first like couple of days of that monthly challenge where I was able to hold the #1 spot for a bit on the leaderboard.
I
But
watched. I
yeah,
watched this live.
it was pretty fun like seeing like, oh wait a second, that's like a billion star Aurelia. I should probably save like either like an Aatrox or a Jinx for that. So it was pretty fun like having like the tactics of like, besides like playing well within the game, like how do I tackle which champions to bring to the mode. So yeah, I would say that was a pretty fun aspect to it.
Yeah,
It
the way
does.
I like to say it is like in a normal adventure, which I think is like the main course of Path of Champions. Like obviously a lot of fun for Path of Champions, especially if you're that far in the progression, is the main roguelike mode of putting a lot of cool powers together and doing broken things over the course of an evolving gameplay. That's like my main course. But for my seasoning or my dessert, I very much like to sort of flip it and say, hey, in a normal adventure, I take this champion, and then I just to figure out which power I should take that's offered to me that goes well with the champion. With the monthly challenge, it flips it and says, here's the power. What champion goes well with that power? And I like that. I found that really interesting personally.
Okay. Um, Not everyone's gonna know this, but for the old Path heads that are watching, when Path of Champions initially released the current iteration, like Path 2.0 or whatever, the Legend level maximum was actually at 20. Currently it's at 30, and I was curious, is there any intention to potentially increase beyond 30 again? Or, like, what determines the release cadence for increasing, like, meta progression stuff like champion level or legend level?
I'm so glad you asked that question. You want to see the next 20 legend levels?
Ooh, yeah.
Jillian, fired up.
Okay, so full disclosure for everyone here, I was told there's gonna be something happening vaguely with like new path mode stuff. I have zero clue what's happening beyond this point, so I'm gonna be as blind as you guys are. Let's see.
Yeah, that was a very fortunate question.
Yeah. Okay. With the power
Yeah,
of OBS, I'm bringing that up now.
the fact we've added Stardust now is why we can do this. Basically, I felt that players are too capped on progression for a long time. We need to extend the road, and we've been working on a lot of stuff for that. So let's take a look at some of the next legend levels.
Okay.
So we've been at 30 for quite a while, and now let's see. So we're not adding new special like powers to this yet. We might do that later. But we put a lot more rewards. So from levels 31 onward, it follows a very predictable pattern. For 10 levels, you get 2 gold vaults. Remember, they're now they're gold and platinum are duplicate protected. So you're always going to get like 20 or 40 fragments or better, depending.
Or Stardust,
So
if it's already maxed out.
Yeah, if you're fully maxed out, like you crazy people out there, then you will get like a lot of Stardust. So yeah, and now at the end of this first 10 levels, you can go a bit faster, Julian. It's a very static. You see, there's a golden reliquary,
Right.
and then the pattern repeats for the next 10. And there's another golden reliquary at the end. So obviously, this is like a nice additional thing. Legend points, if you're at 30, start to matter again. Eventually, we might put additional like buffs and mutators on these as well to further increase your roster-wide progression. But we just wanted to drop a lot of more loot on this. Also, in the past, every level followed a very standard level up curve of costing about 2,000 more legend points or 1,000 early on than the previous one. So over the course of 10 levels, it starts to get really big. Like the climb from 20 to 30 takes a long time.
Right.
Here, we just don't do that. We just equalize it. So like the climb from like 29 to 30 was like 39,000 or 40,000 or something, if I remember correctly. Legend points. Now it's just 30,000 every time. So going from level 30 to 31 will take you less time than 29 to 30, and going from level 49 to 50 takes you the same time as going from 30 to 31.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I am excited to see.
We're going to talk about either.
Yeah, I'm excited to see everything that's going to be happening here.
Oh yeah.
I had a couple of guesses at what would be happening. I was thinking like, what if there's like a new like skin encounter thing? Like we have regular Aurelion Sol chilling out in Targon, and then we have Eclipse Dragon Aurelion Sol, like the Coven thing that's happening, or like 2v2 like Path of Champions co-op or whatever. So, anything that'll be happening.
Oh yeah, we're gonna touch on that. It sounds like you might have figured out the riddle behind my tweet that I posted.
It was It was interesting 'cause I remember like waking up this morning and just seeing like at RealPrismsword from Dan, like what? Huh? And then
Yeah.
I thought it was just an Aurelion pun, which is pretty fun, but I imagine like ooh, maybe it's like tied to what's happening today. So
Yes, it is an Aurelion pun. It's what is it? You call it something made by a design by a Leo in August.
yeah,
It's a real lion soul. It's Aurelion Sol. So one of the things is you might notice that the monthly challenge graphic's a little different now.
yeah,
Let's take a look at this.
okay.
Hello, Runeterra. Rejoice, for I have claimed your pitiful monthly challenge as my own. Too long have I been bound by the scheming of mortals. Conquer these challenges to gather my fragments and release me from my imprisonment. P.S. If you free me, I will spare you when I obliterate your pathetic world. Probably. Um, so basically, the monthly challenge has some rewards now. We are going to be earning Aurelion Sol fragments, which are the only way to get his fragments. You can't use wild fragments on them. He's too proud to accept them.
Oh, okay.
And you cannot find him in vaults. There's going to be a bundle in the shop that's tied to him in a cool skin and has a cool epic relic. But primarily, people are going to be earning all the fragments they need for him in the monthly challenge. He's also our first ever 4-star champion.
Ooh, that's pretty cool,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah. Let's click rewards here. I think this should be implemented. So yeah, here's what's going to be happening. This is going to be live for quite a few months. We don't know exactly how many yet, but the goal is that people can get him over the course of many months if they're not able to master the monthly challenge. So as you can see, 10 wins, you get 20 Aurelion Sol fragments. You do that twice, you'll get them to over 2 months. Even if that's all you can do, you'll still get them to 1 star unlocked.
Right.
So it's a reasonable pace. However, if you get them all the way to 30 wins, you'll get them to 2 stars within the first month. Then if you go to 50 wins, you get 20 more Aurelion Sol fragments, and if you get to 70, you get 40 more. So there's 100 Aurelion Sol fragments spread out through every month, which is important because the 4th star costs 100 fragments on its own. So if you want to take Aurelion Sol to 3 stars, he's already going to be pretty good. If you want to get him all the way to 4 stars, there's a little bit of cool stuff ahead. Why don't we jump over to see what Aurelion Sol looks like, if you're interested at least.
Yeah, sure. I'm curious, just a quick question. So you say he's the first 4-star champion, that's gonna be available for path players to try out. What decided, like, what were the intentions behind having Aurelion be like this grand initial character as an exclusive? Because this is like pretty much like for players who've like mastered like monthly challenges and like to allow them access to it. Like, what initially brought about these ideas?
Yeah, well, we always wanted the monthly challenge to have rewards, right? Like that's very intentional. We just didn't have enough like bandwidth within the system. And also, we didn't want to just give you more of the normal stuff. We wanted to graduate players to different goals. One of our philosophies is that we should make collecting stuff fun. That it shouldn't just be finding the best champion. You should be happy collecting and playing with lots of different champions. There's lots of great gameplay in the game. There's sort of a philosophy we often have of go wide to go tall. And one of the monthly challenges was, hey, we need a go wide mode that encourages it. Like with World Adventures, you start by just needing 1 champion to beat it, but then you need like more. Then you need more specific regions. How do we progress the game beyond just needing 1 champion of every region? Monthly challenge was one of the ways to test that and say, what happens if we build a mode that really encourages players who have lots and lots of different champions and feel like to make them all feel valuable potentially. And so we wanted to give cool rewards. Now, if we just give more of the same rewards, it doesn't feel, to me at least, as exciting. I wanted the idea of players being able to work towards special, unique goals. And Aurelion Sol has sat on the top of Mount Targon and Path of Champions mode for quite a while. I thought it'd be fun to,
Let
take
him
him
flex
off
his
the
muscles.
bench. Yeah, get him on your side. It's like, when Darth Vader, in effect. It's like, it's nothing's more satisfying than seeing a guy that scares you to bits, run at an enemy of yours instead.
It's a pretty fun experience.
Yeah. So, we're going to show you, if you like, all the star powers of Aurelion Sol today.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually curious how the 4th star is going to be happening, because usually, like, with every other champion, like, whenever a new champion is being added, like, whether it be, like, with the expansion releasing or, like, on and off patch, you have, like, oh yeah, 1 star is gonna, like, introduce, like, a mechanic that, like, ties to make the character better, 2 star gives you the extra mana, and then 3 star, like, either double or, like, exponentially increases the 1 star effect. I'm curious what the 4 star is gonna be, actually.
Well, guess what? You're gonna get to see. So here's our first star power.
Okay.
Would you mind reading it out loud for the crowd?
Yeah, sure. I have to just get to the proper monitor real quick. Okay. When you play a created card, reduce the cost of ally champions everywhere by 1. That'll help turbo out make Aurelion playable before turn 10 for sure. When you play a champion, level them up. You're welcome.
Yes.
Oh man.
So yeah, that is we tried so many variants of this guy because obviously he's really impactful, exciting champion. We want to make him well. When we heard that phrase for the first time, when you play a champion, level them up, like it was like, okay, well that's exciting, and that really gets to the heart of it. Lets you think about your support champions in extremely different ways. Like a lot of champions, I find in Path is the one thing. My philosophy with Path in general is that I like champions to help you rediscover it in a new way, to think about cards you don't think around normally. So there's a lot of champions that are kind of hard to level up in Path, especially support, because they're built around very synergistic things. Aurelion Sol just says, "Hey, I'll just do that for you," and I felt like it was very philosophically similar to the way he handles like doubling the power of being so champion focused in his Targon adventure himself. We had versions of him that were much more based around like his PvP kit. But here we wanted to focus much more on he's sort of a champion of champions. If you go to the Targon adventure, like all the other champions are part of Mount Targon. Let's lean into that. So
that's a pretty cool way to like incorporate the PvE aspect of Aurelion, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? There's more.
Okay, so +1 starting mana, as everyone normally would expect. I graciously bestow a rare or epic item upon all your created cards. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yes, so what this means is that whenever you're creating a card, like primarily things like Manifest or Invoke, but anyway at all, you are going to see items on top of them the first time you create them every game. So like when you invoke with Aurelion Sol, they're all going to already have rare or epic items on them, and only ones that like work well with them, not like the Norris T, which doesn't make sense if you're invoking.
Right. Okay, I was going to ask that actually, but you already answered.
Yep, and so basically, you will actually get to draft effectively when you're seeing them offered in the like invoke screen, or the manifest. Oh, I want the one with this specific bonus. I want this spell with this bonus. And it adds a lot of context and variety to like invoke and manifest cards, and makes them really fun to play. Because otherwise, your deck cards get so powerful with items that it feels less good to invoke. And this does not have that problem anymore. So that's all. That makes it really nice. There's also some really clever shit you can do with it. Like, oh, I have this card in my deck normally, but if I manifest it, suddenly it gets an item, and because it's a created card now they all get items, and yeah, you can do some fun things.
One thing I'm curious about, it's not like I've seen this card ever in Path of Champions, but if you somehow manage to create, let's say, Glorious Evolution, would that retrofit the entire like deck with like everyone's blinged out with rare epic items now, or is it just like haven't seen it too often so can't comment on it yet?
I haven't seen it in myself it happen in build, but as far as I'm aware, it absolutely would create items on all your cards because they're all created now. Maybe there's some tech under the hood thing, but that's what my intent would be.
Okay, that's cool to know.
All right, let's take a look at the next star power.
Okay, so Astral Radiance 2 dose. When you play a created card, reduce the cost of ally champions by 2. When you play a champion level up, you're well. Okay, so it's pretty much like the accelerating, like doubling the effect of the initial 1-star power. So that way, like after playing like instead of playing 10 cards for an Aurelion Sol that costs 0, you need to only play 5 now. Okay, that's sensible.
Right. Yeah, and it makes a dramatic difference. Like, basically being able to say, like, okay, I'm going to play, like, 3 created cards over 3 turns, and I'll reduce his cost by 3, and over the course of the game, I'll get to play him around maybe turn 6 or 5. Suddenly, like, you could just turbo people out, especially because there's a lot of reasons behind it, and you'll get to see that when we take him into a game. But also, there's... one interesting thing about Aurelion Sol is that, as you might know, champions have like curated card lists that when you are going through the adventures with them, you get offered options in shops and in reinforcements from a generic pool, but also from a custom champion pool that gets mixed in with that. So some of the cards you see are picked because they work really well with your champion specifically, and some are more generic from a larger pool. Aurelion Sol's pool is like 50% other champions.
That makes sense. Especially since like it's a lot more flexible now with the level up. Because sometimes you would get like a champion like Talia or something, and you're like, well, I'm never leveling her up, but she's there to like be an extra body or whatever. Or like, oh, like I wanted to play this. Okay, So that's cool that like Aurelion just does help enable that actually.
Yeah, so not only is it your support champion, but just when you're going through, you have to still get to the legend level thing that lets you, like, there's a certain legend level. I forget whether it's like 21 or something, but it's somewhere up there where you actually like says you can now find champions in
In the
people's pools. But
stores. Yeah.
yeah, everybody has a few. But the Aurelion Sol's, like most people, it's very very rare with their champions. His is just massively weighted. Like you're gonna see them all the time. So once you're like at that legend level, you're going to just his whole draft is going to change, and you're going to start getting to pick like all of these champions, and of course all their costs are getting reduced, and
Right.
it gets silly.
Yeah, because especially if you get like Astral Radiance too, like if you like just played 3 created cards, like before it's like, oh, I want to play Sejuani for like 3 mana. Now it's just 0 mana, and you're like, oh look, and also now she's just frostbiting everything for free now without second thought.
Exactly. Yep. And now it's time to see the 4th star power.
Okay. I'm curious. I want to take my bet and say it's like an extra mana again, but okay. Anyways, when you play a unit, double its stats if it's Aurelion Sol disguised as Sun. So that's pretty much like the Aurelion like constant power throughout his entire adventure, where it's just like, oh yeah, like double champions when they level up, bam, double it again. So you get that big feeling of big numbers, which like pretty much that's gonna be like every Aurelion player's dreams. Like if you played Aurelion in PvP, you know, like, oh yeah, I wanna just cast a billion Celestials all for 0 mana and for 0 cards costed.
And
so
then just double them all. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, so this is it's fun to play Aurelion Sol as a 10/10. It's more fun as a 20/20. And so this is also, again, every single unit. It's not once a turn. It's not just champions. You just, if you play in a unit, you're doubling its stats. Then if it's Aurelion Sol, not only do you do that, but you also cast the Sky's Descent and deal 15 to all enemies. Like just while you play them, because you know sometimes it takes a little time to play a big dragon, and you're going down tempo. Wouldn't it be nice if you just cleared the board as well?
Right. I'm curious, would it be like a slow speed thing, or would it just be like at burst instant, like bam, played Aurelion, now no response, you're all dead?
So it basically actually does play the Sky's
Okay,
Descent.
that's sensible.
So yeah, it works that way. Also, we could actually consider it at a burst speed and just having him be an instant effect, but then we don't get to see the cool animation, and we really wanted to see the cool animation.
That's perfectly
like it's
fair.
a nice animation. So yeah, that's Aurelion Sol. We can take a quick look at his starter deck if you want, but I think might be more fun just to take him straight into a...
Yeah, sure, let's do that. Just go straight away into...
All right. Yep. So you get to pick which relics we put on him.
Okay, we got 2 epics. Interesting.
Yep. I would suggest, don't use the epics, because I think it's going to take away from how ridiculous he is, but it is up to you.
That's fair. Yeah, okay. Let's scroll through the entire thing. Are there any, like, new epics that aren't on live that are on this, like, test build?
There is one.
Oh, there is one.
I think it's where we'll see it in this list if we scroll down. It's the one that's going to be part of Aurelion Sol's special bundle. Scroll down a little bit, Julian. Let's see. Starforge Gauntlets, here we go.
Okay.
If I'm Titanic, +1 starting mana. You can find level 2 champions when you invoke or manifest, even if I'm not in play.
Okay. That's interesting, actually, because I remember, like, thinking to myself, because I, unfortunately, missed out on the initial golden capsule, because, like, I kept on buying the 100 Spirit Forge things or whatever, like, I think, like, 5 or 6 times. I wasn't sure if I should be doing that or not. But now after I, like, really missed out on the initial golden reliquary, I'm like, oh, no, I missed it. I probably shouldn't do this anymore. But I can see now, like, because most of the epics are, like, kind of like, oh, if you get them on a champion, because all, like, random anyways, you're like, oh, like, maybe I don't want to do this or not. But this one I could see being useful, because I know, like, whenever I, like, make my own assessments of champions in Path, like, Ornn or something, Ornn's kind of the champion where it's just, like, oh yeah, like, it's cool if you can, like, play him and whatnot, but, like, 7 mana, like, realistically, like, when are you getting there? You're either, like, 1 beforehand with your support champion, but now you get the extra mana because... Actually, Ornn's not Titanic, but for other, like, Volibear or whatever, yeah, poor Ornn.
Yes.
Wah to him, yeah.
Yeah, but, yeah. The idea is that this just works whether Aurelion Sol's in play or not. You get extra mana, which helps you with everything, and also it works with, you get to see the level 2 champions sometimes when you're invoking, which is always nice. Like, he doesn't level up, you don't have to level them up with Aurelion Sol, but they're already pre-leveled, and you can put that on other champions too.
That's interesting. It augments the invoke pool as well, actually. I wonder, like, the tech that had to go into that or whatever. Yeah,
impressive. That's the word for it. Impressive tech.
Yeah. I think we should go at least with that one epic because I feel like I'm
Alright.
probably gonna be getting the Aurelion bundle myself regardless because
Yeah.
especially if it comes with the skin or whatever you said like the eclipse thingy. Yeah, I'll probably get that.
I don't think I'm not sure I can confirm or deny contents other than just
Perfectly
what we're
fair.
showing in this video. But like, it's gonna have like an epic relic, the Starforge gauntlets, and it's gonna have some Aurelion Sol fragments. I'm definitely buying it. I think it's a good deal, but I'm very biased. So,
Right. That
uh,
understandable. Okay. And you know what? Let's you know what? Crown Guard Inheritance. I
all right,
wanna
Crown Guard
yeah,
inheritance.
because we are automatically leveling up Aurelion. Might as well like
That's
go
right.
for a big beefy attack. And if somehow the pathetic AI survives this, bam, let's do it all over again.
All right. What else do we want?
Hmm. You know what? Let's go with Gale Force. Usually, like with Gale Force, you like, oh yeah, like let's put it on team or whatever, and like do a billion attacks or whatever. But
Yeah.
I've never
I
thought to
found
Gale Force a 10 cost unit, but now because it's
the
going to be
funny thing
discounted
is
anyways,
the funny thing is actually because whenever you play him, this guy's descend. It's not that bad to get him off the board.
that is true. Yeah.
All right, let's take a spin. That sounds fun. All right. So, do you? Let's go check out the world map and say that yeah, go to go to play adventure and what do you want to take on? Galio, Thresh, Aurelion Sol.
let's fight Aurelion with Aurelion. You gotta
All
fight
right, let's
fire
do
as
it.
fire, you know.
Okay. This is gonna be awkward.
Yeah.
I actually considered hard scripting into the Aurelion Sol encounter that if he just sees you, he surrenders because you're too handsome.
That would be pretty fun.
But I thought that would be like, that'd be funny once, but then everybody would actually want to fight him.
Yeah.
All right.
That'd be a
Obviously, not gonna take it for
speedrunner's
the full
dream,
adventure.
though.
Yep. So let's take it for a spin. We're obviously not got time for the full adventure, but we can certainly get a match or two in.
Yeah, sure.
I can stick around. Julian's busy. All right. What do you want? I know what I'd get here.
You know what? Let's go with Overwhelm. We're gonna have a billion stats. Might as well
Yeah.
have them go with
Yeah,
hit the
cards
Nexus,
you
you
draw
know?
cost one less is super tempting. It's super powerful, but like it's almost always the right answer. But with Aurelion Sol, just end the darn game.
Right.
All right, so it's more fun at least. All right,
Right.
so Sejuani, let's go take her on.
Yeah. Because that's one thing I don't know about Aurelion Sol's deck. I'm not too sure how often it can make cheap created cards. Because it makes cheap created cards, and like you want to be able to like accelerate that mana cheating even faster. And like mana cheating your mana cheat, definitely historically
Right.
pretty good in card games.
Yeah, I think if you put the relic on him, that gives everybody overwhelm anyway.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Challenger,
Yeah.
then like the card is obviously good, but I think it's important to have that as part of your kit.
Yeah, I think it's like the
All
Troll
right.
King's Crusher or something.
All right, let's keep like one Celestial Wonder, I think, and then like mulligan the other two. I would argue.
That's one fair option. I think, personally speaking, I kind of want to like keep the Mountain Goat because the Mountain Goat would be
Sure.
a
Keep
gem
Mountain Goat.
creator. Yeah.
Mhm.
Another part of me for like reveal stuff or whatever. It'd be cool to just like full ball, like regardless if it's right or not, because you get to see even more of the deck.
This is the card I was
Yeah.
looking for, though.
Oh, behold the infant. Oh, that's a pretty fun
Yeah, at level
set of items to get.
Yeah, really early on, you get it at -1 because I thought like 2 is just too much of a tempo loss.
Right.
But later on, it goes down to 0, and that is a very satisfying early game card.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's take it.
Yeah.
play it,
Let's
why
just
not?
open the box.
Oh hey,
Oh.
we got our first level 2 champion in one of the invokes. Do you want to pick? I think it's obviously either Serpent or Thresh here. Depends which one you want to do.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go with Thresh actually, because the idea of being able to play a Thresh. Unfortunately, the scout doesn't pull 2 Aurelion Souls, but we at least get the initial like 1 Aurelion pull.
Yeah, let's drop Mountain Goat here, obviously,
Yeah.
as well. Let's get him beefy. 4-star is ridiculous, like because of this doubling.
Right. I even forgot the initial unit. I thought it was only champions going to be doubling, but now the fact that you get the Mountain
Yup.
Goat now has a billion stats pretty good for our little goat boy.
So what do you want to do here? I think we can just attack. My instinct is to open attack.
Yeah, we could open attack here. I think we have like a bit of time. I'd be very surprised if we found the ultimate line to find defeat from the clutches of victory.
Yeah,
But
I think for the first fight, we're gonna do pretty well. Gem seems good to me.
Yeah, we could either do gem. We could make play the Wounded White Flame and dated bonus it.
And you can see it has a thing on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we get to even create even more cards actually. That because
Yep.
it's now the what's his face?
Yep.
Let's drop, Emperor's deck.
Yeah, let's drop Wounded White Flame and then let's gem it. Yeah, exactly, because it had that item on it. Because all created cards.
Yeah.
What was Thresh's item again?
It was a scout.
Nice. That's gonna be nice.
I am curious though. When the created card gets the items, when is that determined? Is it determined like at the creation screen? Is it determined like when the game initially starts and then there's?
It's determined on the first time we see it, basically.
Okay.
Otherwise, it would be a huge amount of lag to create it on every card in case it got made.
That makes sense. Okay.
So what's important is if you were, say, to discover a card that's already in your deck, then like with invoke a card that's already in your deck or manifest a card that's already in your deck, then the moment you see it in the manifest, the card in your deck, even if you don't pick it, we'll still get.
We'll also gain it. Okay, that's actually interesting as well. That was one thing I was curious about. We could do the guard first, because if we're gonna be discounting 2 mana, we could spend 2 mana to reduce 2 mana.
Yep, seems good. We can always Celestial Wonder afterwards to stop the attack if we feel like, but like we're not afraid of the attack. Alright, well, might as well just play Thresh, right?
Yeah, we can also see what's in the box of the Behold the Infinite.
But Thresh has got the box.
Oh.
Let's check Behold the Infinite, though. I agree. Like, I'll always check first.
Yeah, especially when it's 0 mana now, because of the 2 items it got. Moonsilver is pretty fun.
Yeah, that seems good. Let's pick Moonsilver.
Yeah, we could actually have lethal this turn, I think.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Because if we Moonsilver, I think Aurelion, that's a 3 mana discount, I think, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Moonsilver Aurelion, and then we can also play Thresh, so we'll get Aurelion Sol out for sure.
That is true. We could get, oh my god, get double Aurelion Sol.
Yeah, this is starting to get a little spicy. Alright.
Oh, now we're playing with power. Like, for this competitive season, I've been playing nothing but, like, Cosmic Call. And, it's, like, fun. This is, like, the PvE version of if you can play, like, Cosmic Call forever.
Yeah.
And you see this animation. We could like blindfold and like throw a dart and whatever pick's gonna be fine.
Matter.
Yeah.
Supernova Immortal Phoenix doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. The opponent's Gonzo.
Oh, very much so. So yeah, the 4th star power costs 100 fragments all by itself. That's the double one that also does the thing. So it had to be worth it.
Right. Yeah, you gotta like build up towards the flair for the dramatics, you know.
Yup.
Oh my god. Actually, wait. Before we swing, actually, let's do only Thresh and only Aurelion, because they both have Scout, actually.
Oh, that's true. That's mean. Alright, let's do that.
In case we didn't have enough damage as is. I almost wish we could, like, give the enemy Nexus, like, 1,000 life or something, because, like, I just want to, like, be able to, like, constantly beat this thing down.
we could if we were on the internal build, but Julie wouldn't let me.
That's fair.
Use cheats. Alright, so you see, because it's summoned, not played, it doesn't double.
Right.
So we didn't want it to be every time you summon, because that could get really out of hand, even more so than played. We wanted you to be like throwing down haymakers, rather than just triggering off of like Swarm. Like when you do it with summon, it's suddenly token generation is the best thing. When you do it with play, you actually want to get shiny cool things in your hand.
Right. That's sensible.
Alright, well that's our first one with Aurelion Sol.
Yeah, I think at this point, like, normally, like, sometimes, like, after fights, I'm thinking about, like, card rewards meticulously. I feel like you can just kind of, like, have, like, a fun challenge run where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna, like, blindfold, like, roll a dice, like, let me roll a d3, and it's like, you know what? I normally go with Dragon Lieutenant, but, it landed on Zon Bouncer.
Alright, it landed on Zon Bouncer, let's do it.
Oh, man.
And now we can pick our support champion.
It's actually interesting thinking about like how the support champion pick's gonna be different now, because we have the level them up instantly. Because normally champions that would be like, oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to like I was actually about to bring this up. Normally, sometimes you can like see like a Teemo and be like, oh wow, like I can sometimes like do some cool things if it has like a Yomu's Ghostblade and starts a free attack. But now, because Teemo levels up, you shuffle in 0 puff caps forever because you can't keep doubling 0.
Yeah, at least you get the other puff cap options when you take him as a support champion. But yeah,
Right.
you don't want to keep doubling 0 here.
Yeah.
Whereas like Garen is usually a little slow, but here he's already got a lot of crazy stuff, and he's going to give you like even more rallies. So
Right.
and he doubles and doubles. So I'm feeling Garen here. Also, I want a bit more expensive champions when I'm playing Aurelion Sol because
Right.
Nora will cost 0 immediately, but
Right,
Garen can
right,
keep getting
yeah.
value from it.
Because that's all I was gonna say. Like, I'm like, you know what? I kind of like want to do our favorite grandma Nora, because like just having Nora quickly like just making like stuff in the portals like seems pretty fun. But like now, as you mentioned, like any created card quickly diminishes in value for like any cheaper champions. Because normally like
Right.
the go-to meta for path, like if you like want to improve your win rate by a lot, you just like pick cheaper support champions and like stack a bunch of items on them.
Right.
But now that Aurelion's like 1/3 star power of just making expensive champions like much cheaper, more effective, yeah, let's try out Garen.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Yeah, I think Nora's defensible there, especially because she doubles as early removal. But
Right, and
I,
also
I,
like if
I think
we
Garen's better.
yeah, if we hit with portals, if we hit with level 2 Nora, then we got like very like big portals coming out.
Hmm.
And then like bam, like now the board's wider,
Yeah,
the board's taller alongside being wider.
that's one of the fun things about working on him is because like so much of Path you just want to push as aggressively as possible with a lot of champions and take always the cheapest thing. Like I tell new players, like if you're not sure what to take the cheaper thing. But with the like if they're both good options or you're not sure which is better, cheaper is almost always better in Path. That's why I
Yeah.
love my personal designs, like Aurelion Sol and Chemtech Duplicator and stuff, push the other way. I want to encourage players to, be able to do big, cool stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
which fight do you want?
You gotta indulge your little Timmy sometimes. Let's go with Zoe.
Yeah, let's get some revenge.
Yeah.
Zoe has caused many a problem in Path to many players. Let's get some karmic justice for your audience.
Yeah. I remember Zoe and Colossus encounter, like sometimes if you just aren't careful enough, she can just make a run on Nightmare very quickly. It's like, oh boy, I
Yep.
can roof her, and then bam, the random card was Moonsilver, and now she gets burst
Yep.
+1/+1, yeah.
And the cool thing also is I'm going to drop a little hint because I think one of the questions people are going to ask is like, well, with Aurelion Sol being so ridiculously strong at 4 stars, which again, that's a goal. He's
Right,
supposed to
right.
be crazy at 4 stars. You're gonna at first get to play him with 1 or 2 stars. We still want him to be powerful and fun, but like, surely if he can just crush so much content, we need some harder content, especially if
Right.
other
That was
champions
one
don't
question I was
necessarily.
gonna eventually ask
Yeah.
after this entire little demo thing was over.
Yep. I'm working on some stuff. I can't get
Okay.
too details yet, but just like we added Stardust so that we could increase rewards, when we start adding more power, we're gonna have to add some new challenges.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we could mull away the Zon Bouncer.
Yeah.
We're
Spacey
most likely
Sketcher's
gonna
great.
discard whatever we get anyways for the Spacey Sketcher.
I think we mulled Aurelion Sol. Well, actually, we can keep it.
Yeah,
Because we can always
he's
discard it if we need to.
yeah.
Like,
There's a fair chance we might actually be able to even play Aurelion Sol this turn,
yeah.
depending on what we invoke.
Yeah, especially with the -2 discounts. It was actually really funny. We debated a lot internally about whether the jump from cost reduction 1 to cost reduction 2 was enough to justify a 3-star. Then we played with it once. We were like, yeah, we're not worried about that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly Spacey Sketcher here and ditch one of the ASOLs.
I'm down to actually ditch the Bright Steel Protector even, but we can ditch an ASOL too. We
Right.
don't need one ASOL to crush the opponent so hard.
Yeah, this is interesting as well because you can always make the decision based on what item it is in case you really
Yeah.
want it. Like I usually default to turbo mana 0 cost dude,
Right.
but this does have last breath rally, which is pretty sweet, whereas regeneration is useless.
On a 1 health guy, yeah. I personally just want to pick the 0 mana guy because I want to cheat
Yeah,
Aurelion Sol early.
that's where my instinct is.
That's my competitive raid speak. I'm like, oh man, I just
Oh no,
want to
yeah,
get
I'm
the
totally with you.
craziest.
Look at Spacey Sketcher too. It's a 4/4. That's hilarious to me. All right,
Yeah.
let's throw out the 0 cost.
Man, Celeste has been hitting the gym.
Yep. She's got studded leather, and then she gets doubled.
Yeah.
Let's play another Spacey Sketcher and ditch. Which one?
I'm down for. Let's ditch the Bright Steel Protector because she
Yeah,
has
we don't
ephemeral.
need it.
She's not going to be long for this world usually.
Very true. All right.
Oh my
well,
god.
This seems obvious.
Well, that's interesting. There's 4 options here.
Oh god, yeah. I actually missed the Kale at first. That's one of the fun things too. When I first asked engineering to say like, hey, make one of the chances make one of the options like a level 2 champion every now and then they didn't understand that I meant replace one of the first 3, and then I saw this and I'm like, oh my god,
this is even better.
This is so much cooler.
That's a very fun happy accident in design, actually. I personally want to go like, Moonsilver here because I want to play that Aurelion next turn. I just want to rally and kill the opponent.
My head says Moonsilver, but my heart did say Kale. I mean, she even had the double double.
Yeah, the double.
Yeah,
we got an in and out thing over here going on now, and it's Path of Champions.
Do we even Moonsilver this turn? I don't think we do.
We could. The reason why I would say you could either Moonsilver now or later, but the reason why I would say Moonsilver now is because sometimes the item you get from the Hex tech could sometimes like change how your attack would go. Maybe.
I don't think it would change it. I mean, it might
most likely it's gonna be like, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, if they had a better set of blockers than we would, I would feel it. Yeah, let's reduce Aurelion Sol. If they had a better set of blockers, I would be more concerned. But like we're gonna attack no matter what. But you know, sometimes we're gonna get like a buff or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just
or like the support thingy.
Yeah, let's just kill Zoe. Oh, the support thing would have been great. Yeah, that would have been nice. We could have survived this attack then. All right, I take everything back. Everything I said. All right, let's just kill her. Nice emote there.
Yeah, it's always interesting seeing like the AI like on how it's programmed on certain what's his faces like emote thingies. Oh no, Aurelion's 1 mana too much. That's unfortunate.
I know. I was doing the math on that, and I was like, if we got it free.
Yeah, cards cost mana. That's criminal.
I know.
I want all my cards to be free
that's
forever.
why I was thinking about Kale this turn.
Yeah.
But we're still fine. Like,
yeah.
I think we just kill Zoe here. What's the card they have in their hand actually?
I think it's either stun or stun or Equinox. Okay. Yeah, I was gonna guess one of the slow spells, but I couldn't guess which one. Yeah, actually, my second guess was also wrong too. I was gonna say stun or spell shield, but I got the second one wrong too. Actually, glad I didn't say it too often, but
yeah. There we go. Oh, that's adorable. Yeah, that's gonna make the difference, Zoe.
Oh yeah. I mean, they do save 3 life.
Yeah. For now. All right, let's. I think there's a pretty obvious play here.
We could technically, if we want to, we could open swing. Actually.
We could.
And then after, because we do. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. This is actually better. This is better.
Yeah.
I was blinded by the Star Dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, like the speed run, like optimize your times. Definitely play Aurelion Sol ASAP. But if you want to have a bit of fun with the computer, you gotta swing them. Bam! Like, oh no, I can't attack anymore.
Mana. Open attack is always good unless there's a reason not to.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we didn't have the play rally power, it would be different.
Well, let's go with the Bard actually.
Yeah, definitely the Bard here.
Yeah, get some dupes in before the game is over.
Yeah, and so again, we're seeing that because that's his relic, and we have an extra mana gem because, of that as well. So that makes this a lot easier when you have an epic relic on Aurelion Sol.
Right.
Because those things can start spinning, like you start getting Bard, that would discount the cost of Aurelion Sol as well.
Right. Actually, that's one thing I was curious about, because I see it now, and it's processing after seeing it a couple of times. Originally, when I had the idea of your champions are leveled up, I was curious if like we'd have like level 1 support champions and then like you get to see the cinematic of them. Was there ever a consideration to have champions be like the initial like level 1 and then like once you play them then you get the cinematic and then bam, you like, oh, like cool, I like had this skin for this champion, now I can see the cool cinematic now, because I see bards like instant level 2 and same for Kale.
Yeah, so that's just because they're coming in from the relic. Originally, we were like, if we were to keep them at level 1, it would be a much worse relic for any other champion besides Aurelion Sol. Like, it's the same thing for him.
Right.
We want other people to be able to use that. Obviously, like the champions you find in like the reinforcement options in his curated card list, if they show up correctly, and you have like that curated thing, those are gonna be level 1, and the support champions you have are level 1. So you still see all those guys leveling up.
Okay.
And it's just that this one is supposed to work for more champions, so
okay,
also,
that's sensible.
Trust me, it's really cool to see like 30 level up movies the first time in one match.
Right. Okay, that's sensible. That's sensible. I was gonna say because like it would be cool to be like, oh yeah, I have like corrupted Zoe and I have pool party Zoe and I have like
Yeah.
what's his face, like this misfortune thing or whatever, and then now like I get to like see it in Path of Champions every so often, but now like after like the first like 3 4 5, I see what you're saying. That makes sense actually.
Yeah, seeing like we briefly had a thing where like he shuffled a lot of level 1 champions into your deck, so you could like start leveling them up that way instead of like some of the other stuff he was doing, and that was really cool. But when you were doing it like 5 times a match, it was like this is like I'm waiting through pop-up ads after a while. So
Right. Okay.
getting the right balance felt correct.
Okay. That's
Mhm.
fair. Yeah, because it definitely like spoke to like the Timmy and me, where I'm like, oh, I want to see like Kale like do her like ascending to
Yeah,
the sky, and then like, oh, I want to see
and
Bard like go through the portals, but then like,
and you totally will if you get them as like through any other way. It's
right,
just at
right,
Aurelion Sol Epic 2 Relic, which makes him like makes it really good on the other Titanic units out there or the other invoking units out there.
that's sensible.
Cool. Well, we're a little tight on time. Do you want to do one more match or do you want to do some other stuff? Because I know you got some
Uh,
more
yeah, I was
questions.
gonna say I definitely have some more questions actually. So you can bounce from this portion now. I'm gonna close this Path's Future
Cool,
source
cool.
in OBS.
All
Um,
right.
let me see.
Thanks for playing with me. I always like
Yeah,
playing Path.
it's pretty cool to be able to like be a part of this like uh Path Future and just like be a part of that like initial test build and see like what's happening. So I think like what's being built here is pretty cool. Cause like I was thinking about this before, and I was thinking like like after you've grinded enough, and like once you understand like how to like succeed in Path, it gets like pretty monotonous at times to just do the same thing over and over again. You have to like kind of
Yeah.
impose your own challenges, like oh only pick left card, or oh uh do X, Y, and Z before doing that. But like there's like one, a new goal to grind towards, but also B, now there's also like as you mentioned, like even more stuff on the horizon beyond this Aurelion Sol new character.
Hmm.
'Cause I think that's
Yeah.
definitely one of the cooler ways to introduce a new character. Because sometimes, one of my questions I wanted to ask you actually was, how does the team decide which characters to bring in versus not bring in? Because I know sometimes people see like, oh, like I thought Rise would be like the best Path of Champions character to
Hmm.
like introduce him, but like he's not there. Or like, oh, I thought Nora would be pretty cool because of all the portals and stuff that she's doing. How does the team decide when to add certain characters into the mix, and like which release cadence do you try and like adhere to? Like do you try and lean more towards expansion releases? Do you try and do like more off patches? Like what's the general goal?
Sure. So for the first, obviously we try to focus on the champions that are coming out as part of the new expansion, because when people see the cool new champions, often they want to play with them in Path, because a lot of our players are just dedicated Path players, and when they're seeing all the cool new stuff, they want to do it in their favorite mode. So also, it's really easy to work on it at the same time because it's fresh in mind for like designers. They're constantly brewing around it, and we can just let the designer who made that champion often be the one who makes their Path version. Not always, but we try to default to it, so which is nice. It helps you kind of create the legacy of your character in both modes. Other than that, for other champions, there's a lot of different factors, from region representation, because like some regions are underrepresented right
Right.
now, to playstyle variety. Like there's been very few defensive champions, so that's like why one reason I've been trying to push more in that direction, why Aurelion Sol pushes in that direction as well. But the biggest factor by far is passion. Like Path has been a passion project for us for a long time. Like one of the reasons like we keep wanting to keep supporting it is just designers love it and love working on it, and other people on the team do too, and players do too. So it's a win-win for everyone. So whenever I have designers who are like at a dedicated Path sprint, I ask them to suggest designs for like 8 to 12 champions that they'd be interested in working on, and then we work together to narrow them down to a top 3 that we both think collectively are the most promising of those. And most promising is like a good mix of this design looks like a lot of fun, and this champion would be good for an upcoming release. Either it ties into an event, or it's doing something like at a time we really need it to. Like we want to release a new you know special event and we want to tie a champion to it, or release a bundle or something like that. So there's all these different factors, but the main one is like we want to do something that looks really satisfying and fun, and a designer has a good idea. Like actually all the champions you mentioned are ones we've talked about adding. But often it's right to right for the confluence of this is a cool champion, this is a cool idea, and we currently see a good path to executing on it. Like there are some champions I desperately want to add, but we don't have like a kit that feels perfect for them yet. Whereas other champions, somebody suggests something and suddenly it all just clicks. You're like, oh, that would be so easy. That's definitely gonna be fun. It's gonna be easy to implement. It's not gonna require a lot of new engineering tech like the way some of Aurelion Sol stuff did. We'd be silly not to do it. And so the heat map of what we're passionate about, what's technically like very very cheap to put in because it already uses or works with existing tech rather than asking engineers to like stop what they're doing and work on something else, and what makes sense for events, it all is always shifting, and we're building this pool of cool champions and cool champion ideas, and then just we'll release them when it makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it's cool to see the intention behind all of that. Because like as a budding designer, myself on like certain like smaller projects, it's like sometimes like you have a clear intention to yourself because like you're making the thing, but then like trying to see if people pick up on those intentions is like hard because they can't like read like certain like cues or whatever.
Yeah, it's like I think of often design like this as pegs and a pegboard. It's like here's some cool ideas in my idea pool, and here are my needs that like players are asking for, a cool thing for a game. Like Epic Relics were an idea for forever, but it wasn't until we needed some sort of cool long-term goal for players to work towards. If there wasn't anything in the shop currently of the current like rare rares I needed, so there's something that felt good to save for as a long-term goal. Where we had that, I was like, hey, Epic Relics would be a really good way to fill that need. So now we should do Epic Relics. Now it makes sense because
Right.
the game is calling for something that's that shaped. Also, this is a quick aside, but I think it's important to say because you used the term budding designer. Um, I believe strongly, and I don't know why anyone would ever disagree with this, though I know some people on Twitter do, that if you are someone who is designing a game, you are a game designer. There are pro game designers, but but anybody who is designing or has designed a game is a game designer, and we have a lot of people who do that in our community. Whether it's their homebrew D&D campaign because you're doing level design for that,
Right, right.
whether it's custom card, you're a game designer. That's game design, and I just wanted to say that because that's how I started. I started with custom D&D campaigns and custom Magic cards myself.
Right. No, that's definitely a very good message out there for anyone who like wanted to like do their own thing, whether it be like custom cards or like bigger like own system mechanics and stuff. But anyways, back to the path related questions.
Hey,
Um,
that's tough.
with the power of video editing, I'll have like an image either like show up like here, or whatever, or like take up full screen. Uh, in the initial Path of Champions 2.0, there were characters that had like the 1-star adventure like story thing and the 2-star story adventure thing, and like you get like a relic or whatever that's unique to the character. Um, but then like at that initial release point, there was the 3-star like the adventure will continue.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any intention currently within the Path team's current scope to either expand upon 3-star adventure for those initial roster or to like introduce like 1 and 2-star adventures to the rest of the roster? I'm curious about that.
Sure. So there's no immediate plans, and the main reason is because like we can do anything that players care about. Um, So we just can't do everything that players care about at the same time. The truth is, like, when we launched that, a lot of the teams originally who was working on Path at the time thought that players would be primarily interested in adventures, that like the adventure itself was the star, and that they'd want to primarily constantly be playing new adventures. And what it turned out is that a lot of players felt like that the champions were the star, that they wanted to constantly unlock new champions with new play styles and explore that, which was fortunate because building the narrative story adventures took like we could do like 3 champions in the time it would take to add one of those to one champion. So basically just by listening to the community, people were saying, hey, we'd rather see you add champions way faster like than wait for them to everybody out to fill out their next 3-star adventures over like a year or something.
Right. That's sensible. Okay.
Mhm.
Good to know.
So yeah, so we might eventually, like, I actually believe that Path has incredible narrative potential, and that's really exciting. And I think that there's a lot of really cool stuff that I want to explore, and some of which we're even going to be potentially exploring relatively soon in one of our internal game jams. to explore different ways to do more narrative and path, because Runeterra is an amazing world and we want to spend time in it. But it's important to listen to what players are actually looking for, what they want to do. We can't just do stuff that we want to do. And I think it's really important to find the right way to do big narrative things that more than one champion can play.
Okay, that's sensible. Next thing I was curious about. I know you said earlier that there is going to be a cool, like, oh yeah, there's going to be an even crazier challenge because 4-star Aurelion just absolutely mops the floor with everyone. Um, I'm curious, beyond that initial, like, adding harder challenges for, like, the initial roster plus the new upcoming Aurelion, were there any ideas with the team to like allow players to like toggle star powers or toggle champion level bonuses? That way people can impose the self challenge themselves. Like, oh, I want to see like 3-star
Yeah.
champions with 0 levels or level 30 champions with no
Yeah, like
star
intentionally
powers.
undoing your progression or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually been talked about a lot, and it's something we might do eventually. I've always been personally against it, so like I'm one of the people that's like suggested we don't do that, at least not in the short term, because I feel like if we spend like, for example, it's always opportunity cost. If you said like, could you put this in for free right now? If it was just, can you press a button and this happens? They'd be like, yeah, of course, why not? Let players do the cool thing. But if we're gonna spend development time on that, like building new screens, figuring out the flow, tutorializing how it works, making sure that people don't actually like do that on one champion, then play the monthly challenge with like a 0-star champion and like hate themselves. Like
Right.
adding all these edge cases and safeguards is actually surprisingly tricky, and it's a lot for what's fundamentally just letting players undo something. My instinct right now is to spend that effort on improving the challenges players can deal with. Like I would, for example, much rather give players a new cool challenge adventure or a challenge mode or a special relic that says, hey, beat this while you're down 1 mana gem, and I remove a power for you, and I give you an extra reward, or just make the enemies harder in general, rather than letting players redo the same things with less power. I'd rather create new challenges. That's where my gut instinct is. It's a bit more like the Heat and Hades is the way I would
Right,
describe it.
right, yeah. That's a pretty fun system. In case like people don't know about like Hades, it's like action roguelike. After you beat the game, you can like keep building upon like adding more like augments to make the run more difficult. So that's a very sensible idea and like very like fair approach to like because as as easy as it sounds to like make certain things, it's an opportunity cost of like some things being eaten away elsewhere whenever you spend time on one thing. Um, uh, Last question or second to last question. As we saw here, and I guess this ties larger to like Runeterra, like cosmetics as a whole. We saw in the Aurelion path where it's like, oh, when you generate a champion, like you get like the level 2 champion, and like now you can like just wield it. Sometimes people might have like skins for said champions, like, oh, I have Bard, or I have Sun Eater Kale, but it feels kind of bad to not be able to like have that within the game already. Is it on either the path teams or like engineering teams to be allowed or bleh, speaking so fast sometimes, to allow players to have like a favorite for skins, and like that way if it gets generated by like Aurelion's power or Howling Abyss or whatever other means, to allow players to have that skin already there? Is that like on the
Got it.
current roadmap?
That's not something I'd actually even. I don't think I've heard that suggested before. Like that before you asked it. I'll definitely pass it on. There's just a lot of really cool ideas that we'd like to get to eventually, and we're just waiting for the right moment. Like I think it's important to understand in game development, like there's so many cool ideas all the time. We've got a giant backlog of like 30 to 50 ideas that all make total sense to get in the game tomorrow or should have been in the game last year. Um,
Right.
but we can only work on the top 3 of those at a time. There's literally a design document that I saw floating around like a few months ago that the then lead designer of Legends of Runeterra, who's lead designer for many years, um, wanted a lot. It was a really cool idea. Just reading it, I was like, this is awesome. We should absolutely do this. And it had been, that design document was dated from before Lore's launch,
Oh.
um, and and was still forever in the backlog of when it's the right moment, we should do this. And that's really the tricky confluence is like, um, something generally needs to be like something that helps and serves players in a really obvious way. It should be one of the things that's going to impact the most players in the biggest way. And it should be things that, you know, we prioritize stuff that, like, you know, if a player has bought something, we really want to make sure that if they're having a problem with it, that we fix that.
Right.
If they're investing, anything like that. Number of players impacted affects a lot. So something like somebody who has a special menu to toggle on all possible skins for all support champions you might find in Path of Champions is just a relatively low impact. Like, it's undeniably a cool thing, but there's all these weird little problems. Like, where do you put that screen?
Right.
Does every champion have their own? What is the data structure implications of that? You know, does that mean that, you know, client and services need to talk to each other in a new way? Do we do it in the adventure itself? If so, how do we tutorialize it? Should we be overwhelming new players with it? Probably not. They probably don't have a lot of skins yet. At what point do we tell you about it? Like, do we flag it every time you go in? Do we want to have different ones for different champions so you can match? Like, there's just and what's that menu look like? You know, the in-adventure scene doesn't necessarily tie to the same things other things do. So it's just a lot of really complicated questions. And it really comes down to the fact of, like, would we rather be doing that, or, you know, fixing some high impact bugs earlier, or getting out a new feature like 2 weeks faster? Would we have rather have seen the Aurelion Sol monthly challenge adventure get its new rewards a patch ago instead of this patch, or would you rather delay it to get something like that? So these are always the types of questions we have to ask when there are these really good ideas that are just fun. And it doesn't mean we're never going to do it. It just means the right confluence of events has to happen when we're already tinkering with that kind of stuff. So it's a lot cheaper than usual. Like, hey, while we're doing this in the same area of the code, let's also do this, or something like that.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I guess quick question. I see on the background of the little thing I set up for this interview thing right here, we see
Oh, this is
FRELJORD's locked.
uh-huh.
Is there like a rough? Because I remember like Targon, Streama, Shadow Isles weren't always
Yep.
available, but then eventually they got added. I'm curious, like, what the rough, like, you don't have to give like an exact date or even rough estimate, but like, when can players expect like either like a FRELJORD or Bandle City update to the map potentially?
When they're ready.
Perfectly fair. No need to push any further beyond that. Anyways, Dan, thank you so much, and Julian and Matt and everyone involved to let me do this. This was a very fun and humbling experience. I'm honored to have been a part of this. Any closing thoughts you have for the community, Dan?
I'm going to be watching when this goes live. Who can knock out Aurelion Sol on Twitch? If you're streaming that, I'm
Ooh,
going to be watching to
I
see.
am definitely.
Excellent.
I'll be ready for that whenever that
Cool.
releases.
Excellent. Oh, one thing
Are
I do want
you?
to flag,
Oh, you
just
go
really
first. You go
quickly.
first.
Yeah, just one thing I want to flag about Aurelion Sol, because it wasn't obvious in this build. We are putting it in the patch notes and so on. Because of the way monthly challenge works, you're going to see the graphical like thing shift to tell you that next month you're going to be able to start getting these rewards. But the moment the patch goes live, you won't. You have to wait till like November 1st for that. So it's to give people the warning that, hey, just so you know, next month the monthly challenge is actually going to matter. If you want to do something about that, you better get ready. But just don't want anybody to rush in on patch day and be like, no.
Okay. One thing I am wanted to ask as well for the communities watching this, because I already got like a little bit of like an information rundown, but for anyone who's watching this, and we probably didn't either mention this either in chat or whatever, if you do like a little live thing day of when this drops or other reasons, yada yada yada. When can players expect this like fun and hype Aurelion Sol thing or whatever? Of like new character to unlock, new like just features and 4 stars and all that. Like, when can players expect to be able to get their hands on this?
On this specifically, so it's going to be on November 1st when they can first start actually earning Aurelion Sol on the monthly challenge in game, and it's going to, and, you know, check out the bundle and all that good stuff.
Okay, well, I will hope to see you a little over a month from now, because I am definitely going to be doing that stream, hunting down, speed running Aurelion ASAP. But until then, still very far down the road. But anyways, again, Dan, Matt, Julian, thank you so much. This was a very fun time, and that's all I have on my end.